right, good morning. Welcome to Murrieta PD's first segment of Virtual Coffee with the Chief. I'm Chief Tony Conrad, and I'm joined by Lieutenant Jeremy Durrant. And Lieutenant Durrant and I are going to run a series that we think the public will find very interesting. We want to bring in the subject matter experts that work at the police department and just talk to them about what they do, their background. I get a lot of questions from the public about the various programs that the department runs, and I think this is a good way for us to spend about 15 minutes with our residents and learn a little bit more about what we do. So our first guest on this program is Officer Aaron Harwick.
Good morning, sir.
All right, Aaron's our most senior canine handler. And Aaron, would you just kind of like give us a little bit of your background, how long you've been a police officer, where you've worked, and maybe how long you've handled a police canine?
Sure, yes, sir. So I've been a police officer for just about 23 years, the last 16 of them here with the Murrieta Police Department. Prior to that, I was with the San Diego Police Department. I've been a canine handler for just about 6 years. I'm currently running my second dog. Most of our viewers probably know Canine Buck from all of our social media engagement. He recently retired. And I currently run Canine Roger. He is 2 years old, and we just graduated from the Basic Academy in December.
Okay. Is Roger out here on the table right now?
Roger's not out here on the table due to some shipping issues.
Okay, we have shipping.
We have some shipping issues, yes.
And which canines are these?
I believe this is Buck, Lou, and Mick, I believe, are out there.
All right.
Some retired canines.
So,
and I
yeah.
see different colors up there. Does that mean different breeds of dogs? Can you tell me about the different types of police dogs that we may encounter out there?
Sure. So generally they use three types of dogs. It's either the German Shepherd, the Belgian Malinois, or the Dutch Shepherd. Those are generally the three breeds that we use. Currently, Canine Lou is a Dutch Shepherd. Roger is a Belgian Malinois. Buck was a Belgian Malinois as well.
Do those breeds have any is one better than the other?
Well, that's a subject of a lot of debate among canine handlers, but generally speaking, these breeds are selected because they're good working dogs, they're generally healthy, and they're intelligent enough to take the training.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, right now we have 2 police service dogs that we're actively using. They're out in the field every day. How many do we normally run here at the department?
We normally run 4 patrol dogs. You're right, we are currently at 2 based on some retirements and some people leaving the units, but we're looking to get those numbers back up to 4 by the end of the year.
And how much are we paying for a police dog? And then tell us a little bit about after we purchase the dog, how do we purchase it, the animal, and then what about the training that goes into the animal when we get them?
So I'll take one step back and say we use a vendor by the name of Adler Horse International. They're up in Murrieta, California, which is just up the freeway from us. They will go to Europe. The owner, Mike Reaver, will go to Europe and test and select dogs that he believes will make good police dogs. Once he's selected those dogs, he'll bring them back to America, and then departments like ours and other departments will go and do what's called a buy day. And they'll go and they do selection and they look at the dogs, and every department is looking for something just a little bit different in their dogs. And so when we do those selection processes, we'll select a dog. They cost the department $12,000, so they're not cheap. But one of the reasons that they use those dogs from Europe is the strength of their bloodlines. And I always try and use the example of a race car. You don't try and turn a Geo Metro into a Formula One car, you build a Formula One car.
Right.
And that's what I try and say with the dogs, is that we're building Formula One cars here. We're not trying to turn something into a police dog.
Okay.
I know these dogs are usually used in like high risk, dangerous type environments, and I'm sure it requires a lot of training. Can you touch on some of the training requirements that these dogs need before we can deploy them out into the community?
Yeah, so for each one of the patrol teams that our department employs, as well as other departments, they all attend a basic academy. Our academy is run through Adler Horse International. It's 6 weeks, and basically that gets the dog and the handler to bond and to be able to build that working relationship. Most of these dogs come from Europe with a basic level of training. In Europe, they participate in like a sport called KMPV, or they're an IPO dog, which is just sport dog training in Europe. A lot of those skills that they get will transfer over to us. And so we go to those 6-week classes to become basic handlers. And then from there, we can do advanced training, SWAT integration, that sort of stuff.
Okay. So we have about 45 officers in patrol that are out in uniform every day answering radio calls and making traffic stops. And ultimately, we'll have 4 dogs with them. Right now, we have 2. What do the dogs though bring to the table that an officer doesn't? How does the dog help our residents and help the officer do a better job?
So the dogs are generally looked at as being force multipliers. You know, when you back up to the training, that's why the training is so important. On top of the training that we do for the basic training, we additionally train every week as a unit. Then we also train with our certifying agency, which is Adler Horse, once a month. And then on top of that, we recertify every year, right? So the training is integral because what you're looking for is a proficient dog team. And so estimates for proficient dog teams are that they can save between 800 and 1,200 man hours a year. And so if you put that into numbers, you know, with 4 teams, that's anywhere between $160,000 and $240,000 a year in savings. And it's based on them being able to use their nose to find things, them being able to maybe clear ahead and keep officers safe. Ultimately, what they're trying to do is keep people that we are looking for safer and to keep our officers safer as well.
Just to follow up on that, so I know in 2021, we went to about 60,000 calls and proactive, like traffic stops combined. About 60,000 times our officers responded to something. Out of that, I think we made a little over 2,500 arrests last year in 2021. Kind of comparing those numbers, how often was a dog out on those calls?
So based in 2021 numbers, the way that we track is we track our canine deployment. So obviously the canine handlers respond to traditional radio calls for service, you know, it could be a shoplift or something like that, but a canine specific call for service, we documented 150 specific canine calls for service.
Wow.
During those 150 specific canine calls for service, we either helped and assisted or apprehended 87 different people, whether it's apprehending or simply finding. Out of those 87 people, we actually had 4 deployments where a dog bit the suspect.
Wow, okay.
I think our viewers would be really interested in hearing about the dog's home life. I mean, they follow our social media, they see the pictures that we post of them in action, but I don't think much is known about what happens when they're off duty. Like, are they housed here at the station in a kennel, or is there some other alternative ways of taking care of these dogs when they're not working?
Sure, that's a great question. And so most departments traditionally, including ours, will have their canines live at home with their handlers. So even though the dogs may be off duty, the handlers are never off duty, right? Because it's something constant. All of our department provides an outdoor kennel for all of our dogs. They provide coverings. They provide the ability to put misters in their kennels. They provide the dog houses. They provide all the food. They provide all the equipment necessary to care for that dog at home. And so dogs, like people, when you're working and you put your uniform on, you're Lieutenant Jeremy Durrant. When you're not in a uniform, you're a husband, you're a father, you're doing your yard work. And dogs are kind of the same, is that they're able to live at home, most of them. They all have different personalities. Most of them live at home and integrate into people's families. For example, my family does not have any issue with Roger. Roger at home is a lovable dog, and you might not even know he was a police dog if you didn't know that.
Wow.
Now, there are certain precautions, obviously, we have to take because you have to understand that this is a working dog. And so we can't just treat them like, I don't go mow my front yard and let him lay in the driveway. That's not an acceptable form of care for him,
I'm
right?
glad you're not doing that.
I'm not doing that. I have a 17-year-old son. He mows the yard. Roger stays in the kennel. But,
Good.
So there are certainly extra precautions that we have to take because of that. But many handlers will integrate their dogs to a certain degree into their family life. So it's not 10 hours in the police car and then the rest of the time their life is in a steel cage. It's not like that.
So the dog realizes when it's working and when it's at home, and it can change modes depending on the circumstance.
It does, yes, and that's part of, to go back to the training aspect, that's part of creating a proficient team, right? Is being able to make sure that dog understands that the commands are the commands to do what he's supposed to do, and when he's not given commands, that he is able to relax a little bit and just understand that process.
Okay, nice.
Awesome. Tell us, I get this question all the time. Do our dogs, you're wearing a ballistic vest right now, do our dogs have ballistic vests? And then tell us a little bit about the public's obviously seen pictures where they actually have a badge. Tell us about the vest and the badge.
So our dogs are issued actual police badges. They're a little bit smaller in size. They come in a special holder. We can put them on their collars. We call it their Class A. because it's not super practical for them to wear out in the field because it'll just jingle back and forth. But we do, all of our dogs are issued those badges. As far as ballistic vests, so we have had ballistic vests donated for all 4 of our dogs. There's been some advances in technology that make the newer vests slightly thinner and better maneuverability for them. But yeah, depending on the situation, we might put the ballistic vest on, depending on what the situation is.
Okay.
On the top of equipment, I know that the canine officers are issued specific special police vehicles for their canines that are equipped differently than the normal patrol vehicles. And Southwest Riverside County, summertime temperatures can get into the 3 digits, and I know the public has concerns over dogs being in vehicles and maybe overheating. Can you touch on that and tell us the measures and the equipment that we have in place to prevent any issues like that?
Sure, and actually, believe it or not, we get it in the field all the time too, because we'll quite frequently get a question about, hey, your car's running, and I'll explain my dog's in there. Then we'll get into a conversation about whether or not it's legal for my police dog to be in a car when I'm not there. So you are correct. All of our vehicles are specially equipped. Our vehicles don't have back seats. They have a kennel back there, which is how the dogs are transported. That helps to keep them safe. If you can imagine transporting your own personal dog to the vet or something in the backseat of your car and they're kind of bouncing around, jumping around, we don't want that. So the kennel is basically a kennel in the back of the car. All of our cars come with heat alarms, and what the heat alarms do is they monitor the temperature, just like it sounds like, right? So the heat alarm will monitor the temperature in the car, and if the temperature reaches a preset level, it will do several things to alert people, right? It will alert the pager that I have on my belt. So I get an alert on my belt that says, hey, something's wrong with your car, go check it out. What it also does is visually for anybody in the area, the lights will begin to flash. The horn will begin to honk. The rear windows will roll down. And sure, they will roll down, but they have cages on them. So the dog's not jumping out, right? But the rear windows will roll down and a fan will activate, right? And so that is all done in an effort to keep the dog safe. And it's just that's the way it is.
Sounds like there's plenty of fail-safe measures in place with these special police vehicles.
There is, and we try. So we test those on a regular basis. That's part of my responsibility. I'll have the other handlers on a unit test them manually themselves and report back, and we'll document that, hey, these heat alarms are working or it wasn't working. For example, we had one sensor go down, and so we documented that, and now we're actively working to get that sensor fixed. On top of that, we do actual physical inspections where I will put eyes on those cars, we'll activate the heat alarm and make sure the windows roll down, the fan comes on, the lights flash, the horn honks. All those in an effort to make sure those dogs are as safe as possible.
Absolutely. Cool. I know we need to start wrapping up, but I know the public's super interested in our canine trials. We have them coming up. I attended last year, a couple thousand people out there at Murrieta Mesa High School. Tell us about this year's event, when it is, and what can we look forward to?
So this event, I appreciate the opportunity. I always love to plug it. This event is April 1st and 2nd. The first is closed to the public. That's law enforcement only. The second is open to the public. I'll just give an overview on both days. The first is all detection day. So we have dogs from probably across the county and outside the county. As far away as LAX, we have a dog from Agua Caliente, Mexico coming. We frequently have military handlers come to the trial. And the neat thing about the military handlers is we allow them to compete for free as part of our way of giving back to them, right? But so on the Friday, it's law enforcement only, it's all detection, and the dogs will test themselves, in both a building search, a vehicle search, and a parcel search looking for narcotics and contraband, and they'll also do an evidence search. So that, out in the field, and that's important in our working environment because we do that. Bad guys will throw things. People will lose keys. The dogs are able to use their sense of smell to find that. Saturday, that's the fun day, right? So on Saturday, we do all the building search stuff. In the morning, we'll do building search, area search. We'll do we'll do obedience, we'll do agility. And then starting at 11 o'clock, that's when the gates open for the public. That's when we start doing our apprehension work. And that's kind of the crowd pleaser, and it's just a way for departments and for units and for canine industry to kind of demonstrate what they do, how they do it, and so the public gets a chance to see kind of a behind-the-scenes look, which you wouldn't normally get, if we happen to be on a SWAT mission or something, that the public's not there and they can't see what happened. So that's a chance for the public to see that happening, right? And also, kind of a couple special things that'll be there at this year's trial is we have a young lady from Running for Heroes Canines. She will be there, and what she does is, I think she's 9 now, and she runs a mile every time a police canine is killed in line of duty.
Wow.
So she's actually going to come out to our trial, and in the halftime between the morning and the afternoon section, she's going to run a mile. I know that Lieutenant Durrant has agreed to run with her.
Nice.
And it's just it's a phenomenal thing, I think, because it really shows that our youth, like, they have it, like they're locked on, like they're looking ahead and they're thinking, and it's, you know, I know that when I was 9, I wasn't thinking that, you know, and here's this girl who's trying to run miles and raise money for these canines, which is tragic anytime one of them is lost. And so I think we're pretty honored to have her here. So it's a free event. There'll be vendor booths. Our police explorers are going to be there, man in the snack bar, selling hot dogs and hamburgers. It's a fundraiser for them. It helps them with their program too, so they can travel and do competitions. But overall, it's just a great time. Really encourage everyone to come out and watch it.
And Murrieta Mesa High School is hosting us?
Yep, Murrieta Mesa High School again. They've been phenomenal hosts. We've had it there the last couple of years. It's a great facility. It's a great setup. The way that the vendors and the stands are. Again, the chief was there last year. I think it was a great time. You know, it's fun to watch those teams work. And for me, I look at it, it's a giant training day. It's a time for, you know, handlers to get together and kind of compare notes on how they do things and maybe different gear and stuff like that. Because if you think about the police culture, police officers is a relatively small segment of the population. Canine handlers is a microscopic section of that population. And so for us to be able to network with those handlers from LAX, from RSO, RSO always sends a big contingent out here. We love their support. We support their trials too. But for us to be able to network with all these different handlers from different areas is just a phenomenal time for all of us.
One last logistic thing on April 2nd. I remember last year was pretty hot. I know we always encourage people to sunscreen up, wear hats. Are easy ups allowed in the stands at Murrieta Mesa during the trials?
Easy ups are not allowed in the stands.
Okay.
It just logistically, it's too difficult to be able to get them. We actually had an incident 3 years ago when we were at the Murrieta Valley where one blew over the backside of the stands. And so no, we don't allow them. But if you had a handheld umbrella, certainly water, sunscreen, that kind of stuff, and that's what we can do right now. We're hoping it's going to be nice. Unfortunately, the weather's been a little bit warm lately, so we'll see.
All right, let's close on this. Will Roger be competing in the trials?
So Roger will be there. Canine Lou is going to be there competing for trophies. Because I organize the event, I think it's unfair for me to participate in the events that I know 100% of the details about. So Roger is going to be competing for fun, for training.
Okay.
But Lou is going to be competing for trophies. And just so we're clear, last year Lou won number 4 overall. So out of every dog that participated, there were 50 teams last year. Him and his handler, Officer Bach, were the 4th best team that we have there, which is quite an accomplishment because there are some phenomenal teams that show up.
Lou's still a young dog too, isn't he?
Lou is still young. He'll be turning 6 this year. So yep, he's still good. We just trained yesterday, and actually our decoys don't like training with Lou because he bites so hard and he's so big.
All right.
So.
Nice. All right, love it. So that'll wrap up our first segment of Coffee with the Chief here at Murrieta PD, coming to you from our briefing room. Thank you, Officer Aaron Harwick. That was tons of great information. Such a difficult job that you have. You do a great job. And of course, to my co-host, the inventor of social media here at Murrieta PD, Lieutenant Durrant. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Chief?
I am Chief Conrad, and we are done.